Welcome to today's deep dive. Today we're exploring a really highly compelling long-form dialogue piece. It's titled The Intelligence Shift, AI, Aliens, and Human Readiness, and it was written by Beebz and WAV-E.
Yeah, it's a fantastic piece of writing, really thought-provoking stuff.
Totally. And, our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly why these massive kind of paradigm-shifting discussions about artificial intelligence and, well, extraterrestrial life are suddenly just exploding into the mainstream at the exact same time.
Right. Like, why now? Right.
Exactly. We're going to look at the author's central theory here. We want to know, is this just random societal noise? Or are we experiencing a sort of coordinated psychological acclimatization, what they call soft disclosure?
It is a really profound premise to explore because, when you hear AI and aliens in the exact same breath, it's very easy to just assume we're about to review, like, a science fiction novel.
Oh, for sure. It sounds like a movie pitch.
Right. But what's fascinating here is that Beebz and WAV-E's text is actually this incredibly grounded, deeply philosophical analysis. It's really about how humanity interacts with the unknown. And to understand the present moment we're living in, we really have to look analytically at how rapidly our frame of reality is being forced to expand, and of course the mechanisms driving that expansion.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how disorienting this all is, I want you to just imagine your typical morning right now.
Yeah, paint a picture for us.
Right, so you're drinking your coffee, you check your smartphone, and the very first thing you see is a fully generated, photorealistic video created entirely by a machine. Like a video that is totally indistinguishable from reality.
Which is happening every day now.
Exactly. And then you swipe down to the very next headline, and it's this report on a Senate intelligence briefing concerning non-human craft operating in our airspace.
It's just what?
It is. You're basically experiencing two monumental, reality-altering concepts over a single cup of coffee. So you really have to wonder if these two massive shifts are just, a bizarre coincidence, or if they are intrinsically linked.
Well, the human brain naturally wants to compartmentalize those two anomalies, right?
Yeah, do it.
Like, the technology update goes straight into your Silicon Valley mental folder, and then the aerospace report goes into your, your government news folder.
Yeah, we try to keep them separate so we don't overwhelm ourselves.
Exactly. But when you synthesize them, which is exactly what the source text does, you are forced to ask if the fundamental parameters of our entire world are shifting simultaneously.
Yeah, so let's start with the catalyst that is, like, right in front of us, the immediate tangible shift that's driving this entire conversation. And that is the sheer breakneck speed of artificial intelligence development.
It's moving so fast.
It really is. It feels like we went from, oh, look, this chatbot can write a funny little limerick to wait, this system can pass the bar exam and write flawless code and diagnose complex medical conditions, literally in the blink of an eye.
The jump in capability was it was staggering.
Right. It's like, imagine buying a toy calculator and you wake up the next morning and it's suddenly doing your taxes and writing your emails. You don't have to be the one to figure out the exact timeline of AGI, artificial general intelligence, the point where machines actually catch up to or surpass human reasoning. You don't need to know the date of AGI to just feel the sheer velocity of what is happening.
And that velocity is historically unprecedented. Beebz and WAV-E actually hone in on exactly that transition. AI has, it's crossed a critical threshold recently.
Yeah, we're definitely past the novelty phase.
Oh, entirely. We've moved past artificial intelligence as mere algorithmic sorting. We are now dealing with large language models that utilize massive neural networks to recognize patterns in human data at a scale that, frankly, we cannot fully comprehend.
It's too vast.
It is. And because of how these neural networks operate, kind of mimicking the synapses of a biological brain, they're displaying what computer scientists call emergent properties.
Right. Capabilities they were not explicitly programmed to have.
Exactly. When a system can spontaneously learn to translate a dead language or, pass a really complex reasoning test, we are no longer just interacting with a tool.
It's like the shift during the Industrial Revolution, but for our brains.
So that's a great way to put it.
Because back then, we built machines to replace our muscles, right?
Yeah.
The steam engine, the tractor. It disrupted labor, absolutely. But we still felt special. We still felt uniquely human because we were the ones thinking.
We still held the cognitive high ground.
Right. But now we're building machines to replace our cognition. We aren't just building a better calculator. We are building something that writes the instruction manual for the calculator. And it is fundamentally disorienting.
And that exact cognitive dissonance, that's the core of the author's argument here. They highlight this intense dual human reaction playing out in real time.
Excitement and panic, basically.
Yeah, exactly. On one hand, you have incredible excitement from the financial and scientific sectors about the utility of these models, but inextricably paired with that excitement is deep existential fear.
Because it challenges our value.
Precisely. If a machine can replicate the cognitive, creative tasks that we firmly believed made us uniquely valuable as a species, what is our place in the system? The friction really comes from the realization that we might not be the pinnacle of processing power on this planet for much longer.
Wow. Yeah, and if that cognitive dissonance is already threatening our sense of identity, it totally reframes the other side of this equation.
It sets the stage perfectly.
Right. Because while we're all looking down at our screens, debating if an LLM is going to, make our college degrees completely obsolete, our institutions are simultaneously telling us to look up.
The timing is incredible.
It is. The conversation about non-human intelligence has returned. But as Beebz and WAVE point out, this is absolutely not the fringe, tinfoil hat conversation of the 1990s. This is happening in broad daylight now.
Yeah, that transition from the fringe to the institutional mainstream is a critical data point in the text. The authors track how the terminology itself has fundamentally shifted.
The rebranding of UFOs.
Exactly. We don't talk about UFOs, unidentified flying objects, anymore, because that term carries decades of pop culture baggage. And stigma, honestly.
So much stigma.
So the institutional language has shifted to UAP's unidentified anomalous phenomena. And that seemingly minor change of vocabulary allowed lawmakers, defense contractors, and scientists to engage with the topic without facing professional ruin.
Right. It moved the topic from the realm of conspiracy to a matter of aerospace safety and national defense.
Which is a huge legitimizer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing whistleblower protections specifically drafted into legislation for individuals coming forward with information about non-human technology.
It's all on the official record now.
Yes. And there is a very specific, almost surreal detail from the source text that perfectly illustrates how mainstream this has actually become. Beebz and WAVE note that Steven Spielberg, the director who literally defined the cultural image of the alien for an entire generation with E.T. and Close Encounters.
The absolute master of the genre.
Right. Well, he is making a new film about disclosure. And the kicker here, Spielberg claims this new project is based on reality.
That is a massive shift.
Isn't it? When the premier storyteller of the modern era pivots from imagine if to this is based on reality, the culture is clearly being steered in a completely new direction.
Definitely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the authors are arguing that this simultaneous explosion, the cognitive replacement of AI and the mainstreaming of UAP reality is absolutely not a coincidence.
It's too perfectly timed.
Right. They argue it is a matter of deliberate, orchestrated timing. The cultural stage is being systematically set.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the source text makes a philosophical argument that, honestly, it stopped me in my tracks when I read it.
Oh, I know the exact part you're talking about.
It argues that both AI and UAPs are challenging the exact same core concept. They are both forcing us to ask what it actually means to be human.
Yes, I actually want to read the specific quote from Beebz and WAVE here because the precision of their language is vital. They write, AI questions intelligence. Aliens question identity.
Wow.
I really want you, listening to this deep dive right now, to just sit with that thought for a moment.
It's heavy.
It is incredibly heavy. Up until this specific decade in our history, humanity has comfortably operated under two massive foundational assumptions. First, we hold the absolute monopoly on high-level intelligence on this planet.
Right.
And second, we are the most advanced and perhaps the only intelligent life in the cosmos.
We're the main characters.
Exactly. But AI directly threatens our unique claim to being the smartest entities, and non-human intelligence threatens our unique, solitary place in the universe.
So let's do a little thought experiment here to really feel the weight of this.
Yeah.
I want you to imagine waking up tomorrow in a world where both of those assumptions are definitively, publicly proven false.
Okay, let's play this out.
You walk into your office, and your AI assistant is objectively, measurably, vastly more intelligent, creative, and capable than you will ever be. You are no longer the most intelligent entity in your own house, let alone your office.
That's a blow to the ego right there.
Totally. And then you turn on the news, and the government confirms we are sharing the universe with a species thousands or maybe millions of years more advanced than us. You are no longer the apex of the cosmic hierarchy.
Yeah, you're suddenly very small.
Right. How does that fundamentally alter your personal belief system? How do you define your worth, your drive, or your meaning if it's no longer tied to being the smartest or the most special?
It creates an absolute vacuum of meaning. And this vacuum is the exact reason the authors stress that these twin forces are not just scientific curiosities. This is deeply, intensely personal to human identity.
It shakes the foundation of everything.
It does. Whenever our frame of reality expands drastically like this, it causes massive societal upheaval. Think of the Copernican revolution when humanity realized the Earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around.
That was a huge shock to the system.
Massive.
Yeah.
That single realization decentered human divinity and caused centuries of institutional friction. Darwin's theory of evolution did the same thing, challenging our biological separation from the rest of nature.
Right.
But we have never, in recorded history, faced two reality-expanding events of this magnitude simultaneously. The potential for psychological overload is just immense.
Yeah. And if human ego, identity, and psychological stability are truly on the line, a sudden massive confirmation of non-human intelligence would likely fracture society overnight.
People wouldn't be able to handle it.
No. And that introduces the specific mechanism proposed by Beebz and WAV-E. To handle this potential overload, they argue we are currently undergoing what they call soft disclosure.
Yes. Soft disclosure is the operational core of their theory. The text defines this not as one massive, world-shaking press conference where a world leader stands at a podium and lays all the universe's secrets bare.
Like an Independence Day or something.
Right. That is the Hollywood version of First Contact. In practice, soft disclosure is a slow, highly methodical, multi-generational introduction of paradigm-shifting information.
Now, I have to be skeptical here and kind of push back on this premise.
Go for it.
Because soft disclosure sounds an awful lot like a very convenient excuse for why we haven't actually seen definitive, undeniable proof yet.
That's a fair point.
Right. Like, is it possible that this slow drip of information isn't an orchestrated psychological shock absorber at all? Could it just be standard bureaucratic incompetence?
Or just red tape.
Yeah. Or government agencies using the mystery to secure defense funding. Why assume there is a grand paternalistic plan to slowly acclimate us, rather than just admitting they might not know what these UAPs are, or that they simply don't have the definitive evidence the public wants? Why not just treat the public like adults and say exactly what is known?
It is a very fair critique, and it's exactly the kind of skepticism the authors anticipate. But the reason Beebz and WAV-E argue for an orchestrated soft disclosure rather than just a cover-up for a lack of evidence is based on the sheer catastrophic scale of the ontological shock involved.
Ontological shock, that's a heavy term.
It is. Ontological shock is a state where your entire worldview, the fundamental parameters of your reality, suddenly collapses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The institutions that govern our modern society, global financial markets, organized religion, the legal system, the fundamental social contract, they rely entirely on a shared, stable consensus of reality.
They need everyone to agree on the basic rules of the game.
Exactly. If you definitively rip the rug out from under all of those institutions in a single afternoon by announcing that human sovereignty is an illusion, the authors argue that society breaks down. Global markets would plummet, supply chains would halt.
Absolute chaos.
Right. So the mechanism of soft disclosure isn't just about hiding secrets. It's about protecting the functional infrastructure of human civilization.
Okay, I see. So the idea is that you have to weave it into the fabric of daily life first.
Yes, layer by layer.
It happens through movies, like we mentioned with the new Spielberg project. It happens through incremental news leaks, heavily redacted government reports, and shifting the academic stigma so that everyday conversations about non-human intelligence just become permissible.
You normalize the vocabulary first.
Right. You allow the concepts of non-human intelligence and artificial superintelligence to permeate the culture as hypotheticals, then as statistical probabilities, and slowly, finally, as realities. You acclimate the public psyche over a span of years, rather than shattering it in a day.
Precisely. And this is where the two phenomena interconnect so beautifully in the text. The rapid AI acceleration acts as a crucial functional part of this acclimatization process.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
By interacting with AI daily, by getting used to prompting an LLM and conversing with an intelligence that is explicitly non-human, Our psychological pressure is constantly adjusting.
We're getting used to the idea of other intelligence.
Exactly. We are practicing what it feels like to coexist with a non-biological intellect. The friction of first contact is being systematically reduced every single time you ask an AI to summarize a document or write a line of code.
It's essentially exposure therapy on a global scale.
That's a perfect analogy.
Because if you want to cure someone's phobia of the ocean, you don't throw them into the Mariana Trench on day one.
Yeah.
You let them stand on the beach, then you let them put their feet in the water.
Right, small steps.
And that is what this text is suggesting is happening to us culturally right now. We are putting our feet in the water with AI, preparing for the ocean of a much larger, much more crowded universe.
It is an apt comparison. The exposure therapy model explains why the UAP disclosures are always just vague enough to allow for skepticism.
Ah, so the vagueness is intentional.
The ambiguity is the feature, not the bug. It allows the information to permeate the culture without forcing an immediate panicked reaction from the global populace.
You can opt out if you need to.
Exactly. You can choose to believe it, or you can choose to dismiss it as a drone or a weather balloon. That choice provides psychological safety, while the overarching concept of non-human intelligence slowly takes root in the collective unconscious.
So what does this all mean? We've explored the unprecedented speed of AI models mimicking human reasoning, the institutional mainstreaming of UAPs through legislative action, the deep philosophical threat to our identity, and, of course, the protective mechanism of song disclosure.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Yep.
But let's bring this down from the theoretical and pivot right to you listening to this right now. How does the source text suggest we actually navigate our immediate day-to-day reality when the ground just seems to be shifting under our feet?
This is where Beebz and WAV-E land on their most crucial and, frankly, most comforting point. They argue that the ultimate message for the individual isn't about solving the grand mystery.
You don't have to be Mulder or Scully.
Exactly. The real question you should be asking yourself isn't, is the government hiding a crashed craft? Or, when exactly will an AI achieve consciousness? The only profound question that truly matters right now is, are humans ready?
Wow.
And by extension, are you ready? The authors offer a profound reassurance to the reader. You do not have to decide what the absolute truth of reality is today.
I think that takes so much of the pressure off the individual. You don't have to be the one to single-handedly figure out the grand architecture of the universe before you finish your morning commute.
Right. Just go to work. It's fine.
Exactly. Instead, Beebz and WAV-E offer a very actionable, grounded takeaway for navigating this specific era of human history. They advise us to stay open, stay intensely curious, and above all, stay grounded in our day-to-day humanity.
That's the key.
Because when you're hit with reality-altering headlines back-to-back, panic is your worst enemy. Fear will not help you understand or adapt to whatever is coming, but curiosity just might be the ultimate tool for survival.
Curiosity allows you to adapt, while fear rigidifies your thinking. Fear makes you deeply susceptible to the very ontological shock the soft disclosure mechanism is trying to prevent.
It makes you brittle.
Yes. By remaining curious, by asking how these systems work, by questioning the timing of these institutional announcements without falling into despair, you keep your personal frame of reality flexible. You allow your worldview to expand, stretch, and accommodate new paradigms without breaking apart.
It is a remarkably empowering way to look at a topic that could easily spiral into existential dread. We're living through what is arguably the most unique inflection point in recorded human history, and we all have a front-row seat to the expansion of our own reality.
It's a wild time to be alive.
It really is.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up this deep dive into Beebz and WAV-E's incredible text, we want to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over, something to chew on as you go about your day and inevitably interact with the very technologies and headlines we've been discussing.
Yeah. If the fundamental premise of the source text holds true, if soft disclosure is indeed a real orchestrated mechanism designed to slowly acclimate the human psyche so we don't mentally and societally break, we have to ask the logical next question.
Right.
At what point does the slow, careful drip of information finally cross the invisible line into total, undeniable reality?
Exactly. When does the exposure therapy end? Because if the defining traits of humanity for the last 10,000 years, our unmatched intellectual supremacy and our cosmic solitude, are both definitively proven false at the exact same moment in time.
What's left?
Right. What will become the new defining characteristic of humanity? When the dust settles and we finally realize we are neither the smartest nor the only ones here, will our species be defined by our fear of what we've lost, or by our unparalleled capacity to adapt to the unknown?